We have all seen the posts and heard the advice. Protect your peace, just cut people off. It sounds so clean, doesn't it? Like a quick fix for the heavy weight we feel in our daily lives. It feels empowering to think that if someone drains your energy or causes you a moment of stress, you can just delete them from your world and instantly find serenity. And to be fair, there is a time and a place for that. If you are dealing with someone who is truly abusive, deeply manipulative, or constantly trying to bring you down, removing that person is not just an option, it is a survival move. In those specific dark situations, creating distance is the healthiest thing you can possibly do for your future. But let's be honest about the reality of what is happening today. Most of us aren't actually removing toxic threats. We're just hitting the block button because we're exhausted. We are tired, we are overwhelmed, and we're carrying so much on our shoulders that we don't have the bandwidth to deal with a misunderstanding, a bad mood, or even a simple disagreement. It is so much easier to just delete a person than it is to navigate the messy, difficult work of communication. But here is the hard truth. When you start cutting people off just because you are stressed, you aren't practicing self-care. You are practicing isolation. You are shrinking your world until it is just you, alone with your own thoughts, and that is a lonely place to live. We have to remember that humans are hardwired for connection. We aren't designed to live in total solitude or to treat our lives like a gated community where the only person allowed inside is ourselves. True, lasting peace doesn't come from pushing everyone away until the room is empty. That is just silence, not balance. The real goal and the true challenge for those of us who want to grow is learning how to protect your inner peace while still keeping your people. You want to maintain your relationships without letting them drain your soul. It is about learning to be a lighthouse that stays steady in a storm rather than a wall that keeps everyone out. This is how you actually do it without ending up in a cycle of constant, unnecessary goodbyes. Social media has turned the word toxic into a universal label that gets slapped on anyone who makes us feel uncomfortable for even a second. If a friend disagrees with your life choices, they are toxic. If a family member makes a comment that hits a nerve, they are toxic. We are being taught that the moment a relationship becomes difficult, it's a sign that we need to hit the emergency exit and never look back. But in the real world, this mindset is actually setting us up to fail. Relationships, by their very nature, are messy, complicated, and occasionally painful. They are made up of two or more imperfect people trying to navigate life together, and friction is not just likely, it is a guarantee. When you start labeling every single disagreement as a red flag or a toxic situation, you are essentially deciding that you only want to be around people who never challenge you, never mess up, and never have a bad day. The reality is that even the best people in your life, your most loyal friends, your closest family members, are going to say the wrong thing. They will misunderstand you, they will drop the ball, and they will occasionally be the cause of your stress. This doesn't mean they are malicious or trying to ruin your life. It just means they are human. If you start burning every bridge the moment you hit a little bit of resistance, you will eventually find yourself standing on an island with no one left to talk to. There is a massive difference between a relationship that is fundamentally broken and one that is just going through a rough patch. If someone is consistently and intentionally disrespectful, ignores your boundaries, or makes you feel small on a regular basis, then yes, it is time to move on. That is a situation where your peace is truly under attack. But if the problem is just occasional tension, or a simple lack of understanding, you don't need to nuke the entire relationship. Most of the time, we are so quick to cut people off because we are avoiding the slightly uncomfortable, but ultimately healing, work of having a real conversation. The healthier move is almost always to pause before you act. Instead of assuming the worst about the other person's intentions, try talking it out. Sometimes people are just oblivious to the fact that they hurt you, and a direct, honest conversation can clear the air instantly. Other times, the solution is simply to adjust your expectations. If you know a friend isn't great at emotional support but is always there for a fun time, stop going to them for deep, serious advice. Lowering your expectations isn't about letting people get away with bad behavior. It's about managing your own emotional investment so that you aren't constantly disappointed by people who are simply incapable of showing up in the way you want them to. By being more selective about how you handle conflict, you preserve the good relationships that actually deserve to stay in your life. Many people mistake avoidance for boundaries, but they are completely different tools. Avoidance is a defensive reaction. It's the act of running away from a person or a situation because you don't have the energy to deal with it in the moment. When you constantly avoid people, you're essentially hiding. It might feel like you're protecting your peace for an hour or a day, but in the long run, it just builds a wall between you and the world, leaving you feeling isolated and disconnected. Avoidance is a temporary bandage on a wound that hasn't actually been treated, and it almost always leads to loneliness because you never learn how to exist comfortably alongside the people who challenge you. Boundaries, on the other hand, are proactive and permanent. They aren't about running away. They are about setting the terms for how you want to be treated while remaining present in your own life. Think of a boundary as a gate for your garden. You aren't closing off the entire property or deserting your home. You are simply choosing who is allowed to enter and how far they are allowed to go. It is a clear, simple rule that you set for your own well-being, and it is entirely within your control. You don't have to explain yourself or ask for permission to hold on to your sanity. If you need to rest, you protect that time. If a conversation is turning toxic, you shift the focus. You are taking charge of your environment so that you don't have to sacrifice your social life just to keep your cool. Implementing boundaries is much simpler than people realize. It doesn't require a dramatic confrontation or a long emotional speech. If your phone is blowing up with messages while you are trying to decompress after a long day, you simply don't reply. You aren't ignoring them. You are prioritizing your recovery so you can show up as your best self later. If a specific topic like politics, money, or family drama always turns into a heated argument with a certain friend, you just pivot. You can say, "I'm not really in the headspace for this today. Tell me how your work project is going instead." It is a gentle but firm redirection that keeps the connection alive while steering the interaction towards safer ground. Ultimately, you do not have to disappear from someone's life just to protect your headspace. You just need to manage your access. Not everyone deserves an all-access pass to your time, your emotions, or your deepest thoughts. By learning to say no to the things that drain you, and yes only to the things that feel sustainable, you create a life where you are safe and balanced. You stay in the game, you maintain your relationships, and you keep your heart open, all while holding a firm line that prevents you from being burned out. It is the difference between surviving your social life and actually enjoying it. We have a dangerous habit of picking up other people's emotional luggage and acting like it is our job to carry it to the finish line. We think that being a good friend, a good partner, or a good family member means being a professional problem solver. Whenever someone we love is upset, stressed, or making poor choices, we immediately dive into the trenches to fix things for them. We lose sleep worrying about their drama. We spend hours giving advice they likely won't take, and we exhaust ourselves trying to patch up their lives. The reality is that this fixer mentality is the fastest way to burn out. You are not a repair shop, and you were never meant to be responsible for the emotional temperature of everyone around you. When you take on the role of the savior, you are actually doing a disservice to both yourself and the people you are trying to help. You are essentially telling them that they are not capable of handling their own challenges, and you are sacrificing your own mental reserves in the process. It is perfectly okay and honestly necessary to care about the people in your life, but caring does not mean taking over their feelings. You can offer empathy, you can offer a listening ear, and you can offer support, but you cannot fix the way someone else perceives or reacts to their own existence. Their emotions belong to them, and when you try to force them into a better mood or solve their problems for them, you are overstepping your own emotional boundaries. If you find yourself constantly drained after hanging out with certain people, it is time to stop being their emotional dumping ground. You need to get comfortable with the word no and the power of setting immediate limits. The next time someone comes to you expecting you to fix their day or carry their burden, be direct. Simply say, "I really value our friendship, but I don't have the mental space to get into this topic right now. I need to focus on myself today." That is not being selfish, cold, or mean. That is the definition of being responsible with your energy. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and by protecting your own peace, you are ensuring that when you do decide to show up for others, you can do so with genuine kindness rather than resentful exhaustion. At the end of the day, you have to realize that you are the only person who can truly safeguard your own mental health. You don't have to ignore your friends or stop being a compassionate person to protect your peace. You just have to learn to distinguish between being supportive and being a martyr. When you stop trying to manage everyone else's feelings, you stop feeling overwhelmed by things you cannot control. You gain the freedom to exist without carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And ironically, by stepping back, you often find that the people around you start to become more responsible for their own well-being too. It is a win for everyone. One of the biggest reasons we feel betrayed, disappointed, or emotionally exhausted is that we give everyone an all-access pass to the most vulnerable parts of our lives. We treat acquaintances like best friends. We expect deep emotional support from casual coworkers, and we open our inner circle to people who haven't earned the right to be there. When these people inevitably fail to show up in the way we want, or when they handle our secrets with carelessness, we feel hurt and start planning to cut them off entirely. But the problem isn't always the person. Often the problem is your system. You are trying to fit people into roles they were never meant to fill. You need a tier system to manage who gets what version of you. Think of your relationships like a series of concentric circles. At the very center is your inner circle, the people who have proven their loyalty, consistency, and maturity over time. These are the rare, high-value individuals who are safe with your secrets, your insecurities, and your true self. Outside of that, you have your casual friends. These are the people you enjoy, you share laughs with, and you connect with on a surface level, but they aren't the ones you call in a life crisis. Further out are the acquaintances, people you like and respect, but who are really just part of the broader landscape of your life. When you clearly define where everyone stands, you stop expecting a level 3 output from a level 1 relationship. The beauty of this system is that it removes the need for constant drama and total cutoffs. If a friend reveals that they aren't great at keeping secrets or aren't there for you when you need emotional support, you don't have to launch a goodbye campaign. You don't have to be dramatic or unkind. You simply move them to a different tier. If they were in your inner circle, move them to your casual friend group. You can still chat, grab lunch, and be friendly, but you stop sharing your deepest secrets with them. You stop expecting them to act like a best friend. By shifting them to a tier that matches their capacity, you protect yourself from disappointment because your expectations are now perfectly aligned with who they actually are. This approach is about being a steward of your own energy. Every single person in your life requires a different currency of time, trust, and emotional investment. When you invest high-level currency into low-level relationships, you end up broke, spiritually and emotionally. You are allowed to be selective. You are allowed to decide that some people are only meant to be acquaintances, and that is perfectly okay. By matching your investment to the depth of the relationship, you create a sustainable social life. You aren't cutting people out, you are just organizing your world so that your peace is prioritized. You keep the connections that bring value, you let go of the need to control others, and you finally stop feeling drained by people who were never designed to hold the weight of your trust in the first place. Mastering the art of emotional detachment is one of the most powerful skills you can develop for your own peace of mind, yet it is often the most misunderstood. People hear the word detachment and immediately think of coldness, indifference, or a lack of heart. They assume it means you've stopped caring about the people in your life, or that you've turned into a robot who doesn't feel anything. But that is the opposite of the truth. Emotional detachment is not about turning your heart off. It is about creating a healthy, invisible barrier that stops you from absorbing every single emotion that enters your space. It is the practice of being a participant in a conversation rather than a sponge for someone else's negativity. Think about how you currently react when someone around you is in a bad mood, angry, or critical. Most of us immediately soak that energy up. If a partner is stressed, we suddenly feel stressed. If a colleague offers a sharp critique, we immediately spiral, questioning our worth or getting defensive. We effectively take the weight of their world and place it onto our own shoulders, dragging it around as if it were ours to fix or carry. Detachment changes the game entirely. Instead of diving into the chaos, you learn to mentally step back. You become an observer. You can see that someone is lashing out, but you recognize that it is a reflection of their internal struggle, not a definition of who you are. You stay connected, you stay kind, but you stay separate. When you master this, you stop taking everything personally. This is a massive shift in how you navigate the world. You realize that most people's behavior, their bad moods, their impatience, their rude comments, is almost always about them. It is about their fears, their fatigue, or their own lack of emotional control. When you stop internalizing their projections, you stop being a victim to their moods. You can sit in a room filled with tension and remain perfectly calm, not because you don't care, but because you refuse to let their turbulence dictate your internal weather. You are no longer responsible for managing how they feel. You are only responsible for staying grounded in your own sense of self. Practicing this doesn't happen overnight, but it becomes easier with every interaction. The next time you feel that familiar itch to defend yourself or match someone's negative energy, take a deep breath and pause. Remind yourself, I am observing the situation, but I am not owning it. By creating that little bit of mental space, you allow yourself to stay balanced while everyone else is losing their cool. You start to move through life with a sense of quiet strength. You remain a supportive friend, a present partner, and a focused professional, but you never lose your center. This is how you stay consistent and calm, no matter how chaotic the world around you gets, because your peace is no longer dependent on the emotional state of others. The absolute fastest way to lose your peace is to dedicate your life to a mission that is impossible to complete, trying to control other people. We all do it. We have a vision in our heads of how our partner should support us, how our friends should talk to us, or how our family members should behave. When they fail to meet those specific unvoiced expectations, we get frustrated, we start arguments, and we spend endless hours trying to fix or train them into becoming the people we need them to be. We are essentially trying to play a game where we have no control over the pieces, and the only result is constant irritation and exhaustion. The moment you realize that you cannot force another human being to change their thoughts, their habits, or their temperament, you reclaim an incredible amount of wasted energy. You are not a manager of people, and you certainly aren't a creator of their personality. Once you truly accept that people are who they are, and that they are allowed to be imperfect, that heavy layer of frustration finally begins to evaporate. This isn't about being a pessimist. It is about being a realist. When you let go of the need to control others, you aren't giving up on them. You are giving up on the unrealistic idea that you are responsible for their growth. Instead of wasting your breath trying to change someone, you shift your focus entirely back to your own response. If someone consistently lets you down, you stop relying on them for that specific thing. You start adjusting your boundaries to protect your focus and your mental health. It's a quiet, internal shift. You stop begging them to act differently, and you start managing how much of your own energy you invest in them. You stop being a victim of their behavior and start being the architect of your own experience. You realize that you can still be in a relationship with someone without needing them to be a version of themselves that doesn't exist. Ultimately, true peace is not a fragile thing that you have to protect by hiding away in a vacuum. It isn't found by cutting off the world or retreating into isolation just to avoid the messiness of human interaction. Real, durable peace is found in the middle of your life, among your people, by knowing exactly what is yours to handle and what is not. It comes from having the wisdom to know who genuinely deserves your time, the clarity to determine how much of your heart you should invest in each relationship, and the self-awareness to step back the second you feel your own peace beginning to fray. You are allowed to have standards, but you must keep them grounded in reality. When you stay balanced and keep the relationships that actually add value to your world, you stop viewing connection as a threat to your stability. You stop choosing isolation as your default setting because you finally realize that you are strong enough to manage your own boundaries without needing to delete everyone else. You can hold on to your community, you can keep your heart open, and you can still wake up every single morning feeling calm, steady, and completely in control of your own internal weather. That is not just a dream. That is the reality you create the moment you stop trying to control the world and start mastering your own role within it.